Wayne State University. It's given by Istvan Halas. The title of the presentation is Heterogeneous and Homogeneous Steps in the Selective Catalytic Reduction of Nitric Oxide by Propane over HCl.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to speak about some of our mechanistic studies over a traditional catalyst, the proton exchange HCl5 zeolite. Since the discovery of this inelastic reaction, tremendous work was done in this field, but maybe the only point where all researchers agree is that the reaction is extremely complex. The overall reaction is a relatively simple process. We have two oxidants, nitric oxide and oxygen, and one reductant, the hydrocarbon, and they produce nitrogen, carbon oxides, and water. However, many details of this reaction are not perfectly clear. This slide I highlighted only a few of the many opinions pertaining to the mechanism of this reaction. For instance, why do we need oxygen for this reaction? There are researchers who think that it is important to activate the nitric oxide. We just heard that there are other researchers who think that some other reasons, for instance, they may not activate the hydrocarbons, or it can clean the surface of the catalyst, or if we have other ions present like copper, then it may help to maintain the redox cycle. All these compounds were suggested to be important intermediates at different conditions. Two rate-determining steps were proposed. Relatively few experiments were done over, I guess over not only on zeolites but on all the catalysts to determine what are the active sites. It is strongly believed in the case of the zeolites that some multivalent metal ions, like I show here, are active sites. It was also suggested that the acidity of the zeolites may be also important. I'd like to illustrate on the next slide that the situation with the active sites is not so simple even if we neglect the problems with the redox cycle. For instance, if we have a low silica alumina zeolite, then a multivalent metal can bridge together several neighboring negative charges. But in the case of the ZSM5 zeolites, these are the closest negative exchange positions on a zeolite, but usually they are even much more farther from each other. Therefore, the metal ion is usually covered with extra this big ligand, and it is very difficult to imagine how can the reactant directly interact with these metal ions. In addition, only about 50% of all surface exchange positions are occupied with these metal ions, and for instance on the remaining sides there are protons. This is why it was also suggested that protons may be co-active sites with these metal ions, but it is also very difficult to visualize how can a proton and a metal ion cooperate with each other when they are so far from each other. There are many other problems with the zeolite surfaces. Since the situation is so complex also from the side of the catalyst and from the side of the reactants, we figured that the best is to try to understand the reaction first on a simpler system and then go for a more complicated system. Among all active zeolites, the best characterized and simplest surface has the HZSM5. This is why we chose this catalyst. Here we can avoid all the problems with the multivalent metal ions, and we may get some information about the possible catalytic role of the Brunstad sites. We done simple experiments. systematically change the concentration of the different reactants at various temperatures and check what happens if the reaction, what happens with the products when the reaction conditions are changing. We use traditional gas chromatographic methods and NOx analyzer to analyze the products. The first time it seems to be logical that we should start from the stoichiometric ratio of the reactants, and compared to the stoichiometry, we should change the concentration of the reactants and see what happens. It turned out that it is not so simple to say what is here the stoichiometry. If we consider that in any cases, nitrogen is only produced when we have all three reactants present, then this equation must be the general equation for this reaction. We can look at this equation like a special oxidation of the hydrocarbon, for which one oxygen is used, minimum one oxygen must be used from the nitric oxide, minimum one oxygen atom must be used from the oxygen molecule. So depending on how many oxygens are used from this or the other side for this oxidation, we have several equations which describe still the same reaction with the same reactants. If we translate this to our particular case where the propane is the reductant, then this is the propane combustion reaction, and 1, 2, 3 or more oxygens are used from the nitric oxide and the others from the oxygen. So altogether, we get 9 equations, and without knowing more about this reaction, there is no reason to prefer any of these reactions because they can equally describe this process. So what did we do? We choose all these possible stoichiometric ratios for the reactants and went beyond these limits to see what happens if we are changing the concentration, we use excess from one or the other reactant. You may notice here that I neglected the possibility that also carbon monoxide can form in this reaction. It would give more detailed equations, but basically the limits of these stoichiometric ratios won't change. That's why I haven't taken consideration here. In the last column, I showed the expected productivity of the hydrocarbon to produce nitrogen if one of these equations is valid. We figured that if we find a reaction condition where hydrocarbon cannot be used up for any other reaction, only for the SCR reaction, then at least we will know what is the true stoichiometry. So before I go into the details of the results of this experiment, I'd like to speak about one of our earliest observations, what strongly determined how we are thinking about this reaction. As you see on this slide, at certain reaction conditions, we found very nice oscillations in the nitric oxide conversion. And these results have two important messages for us. First, because this reaction had no significant thermal effect, I must add to it. First message is that radicals must be involved in this reaction. Second, some reaction steps are going on the surface of catalyst as heterogeneous steps, but some reaction steps must be homogeneous because these nice periodic peaks are result of fast homogeneous reactions of radicals. So let's see now how can the FCR reaction start. It has a very low possibility or probability that all three reactants are reacting immediately with each other in a concerted reaction, and we get immediately the final product. We thought at least that it is much more probable that some monomolecular or bimolecular reaction occurs in the first step. They produce some reactive intermediates, and these intermediates will react with the remaining reactants or with each other, and these steps will result in the final products. Not surprisingly to many of you, we found that two reactions can be this initial reaction, either the oxidation of the nitric oxide or the oxidation of the hydrocarbon. This slide shows the typical temperature dependence for these reactions. At around room temperature, we usually found the high nitric oxide conversion, which drops with the temperature. Then at higher temperature, it increases again. It has a maximum at around 300–400 degrees, and it drops again. The combustion of the hydrocarbon starts earliest at 400 degrees, but depending on the concentration of the hydrocarbon, sometimes only at 500 degrees, and it goes up with the temperature. So since even at 400 degrees, the reaction rate of the nitric oxide oxidation is at least 10 times as fast as the other reaction, and at lower temperature the other reaction doesn't even take part. Most probably the NO oxidation should be the initial step. At 600 degrees, the situation is opposite. The hydrocarbon combustion is a very fast reaction, and compared to the nitric oxide oxidation. We don't know everything about this reaction, but some things we found out. For instance, it's not perfectly clear why the activity drops in this low temperature range, the NO oxidation. Most probably there is a switch in the reaction mechanism lower and higher temperatures. But obviously the high temperature conversion drops above 500 degrees, 400 degrees, because we reach the NO2 equilibrium, and it doesn't let the conversion grow. If we change the protons with lithium ions in the zeolites and nothing else is changed in the zeolite, then this high temperature activity for this reaction disappears. It's a clear sign that the Brewster acidic sites must be involved in this reaction. Very similar is the situation with the hydrocarbon oxidation. If we change the protons for lithium ions, then there is a significant drop in the activity, which suggests that most probably even in this reaction the Brewster sites are involved. It's not a big surprise that for both oxidations we found that the reaction is accelerated with increasing oxygen concentration. For instance, on this slide, the cross line shows the stoichiometric ratio for the oxygen and NO reactants in the bimolecular NO oxidation. You can see that at least 10 times so much oxygen is needed to see any significant conversion. So that could be an explanation why the SCR reaction needs so much oxygen, usually. Let's see now what happens if we add the third reactant to these reactants. At exactly the same conditions, we added those of the hydrocarbon. And as you can see, the shape of the curve didn't change too much. That really suggests, as expected, that really the NO oxidation has an important role in this reaction. Let's see, still at the same reaction conditions, what happens with the NO in this in the SCR process. On this slide, the empty columns show the NO conversion to NO2, and the filled columns show the NO conversion to nitrogen. As expected, except of the lowest temperature, we got very nice selective nitrogen production, the nitrogen production goes up with increasing oxygen content, and it has a maximum with the reaction temperature, just like in the case of the oxidation of nitric oxide. Next, we checked what happens if we are changing the hydrocarbon concentration. We kept this highest oxygen content, and this result was a bit surprising. Here again, the empty column shows the NO conversion to NO2, and the filled column shows the NO conversion to nitrogen. It's clear that selective nitrogen production only happens when the hydrocarbon concentration is at least as high as the nitric oxide concentration. We have here in this range more than enough NO2 to react with the hydrocarbon, but obviously this is not enough to get reaction no matter what is the reaction temperature. If we check the same at different oxygen and hydrocarbon concentrations, this is the result. I am sorry, maybe it is a bit complicated picture, but I try to explain. These are the total conversion of the NO. These empty columns show again the NO conversion to nitrogen dioxide, and the crossed columns show again the nitrogen production. So in this direction, the hydrocarbon concentration increases. In this direction, the oxygen concentration. Just on the previous slide, we see the same effect. The hydrocarbon must be at least in the same concentration as the nitric oxide. Otherwise, no matter how much oxygen we have, there is no nitrogen production. In the first three lines, I show for comparison the bimolecular reactions of NO with oxygen. These are the calculated equilibrium values at the same conditions where the SCR reaction goes. These are the results over the catalyst, and this is then the empty reactor. These results were found at 300 degrees, where I show you that nothing else as the NO oxidation can be the initial step. As soon as the SCR reaction starts, obviously the total conversion of nitric oxide drops, and with increasing hydrocarbon concentration, the nitrogen production decreases. Let's see now what happens if we are at high temperature. Basically the same picture, only the difference is that we are at 600 degrees. In this case, it is still valid that the NO and hydrocarbon concentration is an important factor in the selective production of nitrogen, but in opposite with the previous result, with increasing hydrocarbon concentration, the nitrogen production goes up. Obviously, because in this case, the first reaction step is the hydrocarbon oxidation, and the more hydrocarbon we have, the more reactive intermediate we have. Until now, I showed you what happens with the hydrocarbon, with the nitric oxide. Let's see now what happens with the hydrocarbon in this reaction. This is the situation for bimolecular hydrocarbon oxidation if the hydrocarbon concentration is low. In this direction, the oxygen concentration compared to hydrocarbon increases. This direction, the reaction temperature. At exactly the same reaction conditions, we added the nitric oxide, and it seems that practically it prevented the oxidation of the hydrocarbon. It is in agreement what we found previously. Most probably the two reactants are fighting for the same active sites, and until the nitric oxide partial pressure is higher than the other, it simply doesn't let to go to the surface of the hydrocarbon. Let's see what happens in the case when we have higher hydrocarbon concentration. This is the result for the bimolecular reaction. And if we add it at the same conditions the nitric oxide, the strong oxidizing effect of the nitrogen dioxide could come out. Even at 300 degree we have some considerable conversion, but at 400-500 degree much higher as previously. For the same reasons, in this case the hydrocarbon can reach already the surface, can be activated for the reaction. Let's see finally what did we find with the efficiency of the hydrocarbon. We saw that practically negligible hydrocarbon combustion can occur at 300 and 400 degrees. I took into consideration therefore only these temperatures. As you see here, the highest value for the produced nitrogen per hydrocarbon ratio was 1.5. That means highest 3 nitrogen atoms can be produced by one single propane molecule, and we cannot expect a better efficiency. Also, this 1.5 value is the value where we have the lowest probability to any other hydrocarbon reaction as participating in the SCR reaction. So most probably that will describe the possible or the true stereometric equation what we figured according to this that this should be. In this equation I already took into consideration the carbon monoxide formation, but I had no time to talk about this kind of results. Here I show a series of speculations what could be the what kind of reaction steps could be involved in these reactions. All these steps are in agreement with all the experimental findings, but because these are only speculations, I don't want to go into details. Rather, I'd like to summarize what are these experimental findings. We saw that even on a single catalyst, depending on the reaction conditions, different reaction routes can be open for the SCR reaction. In our case, below 500 degree, most probably the reaction starts with the NO oxidation. At above 500 degree, most probably with the hydrocarbon oxidation. Both reactions are catalytic processes. OH groups, breast acidic groups, are involved in this reaction. We haven't seen significant co-formation even when the conditions were reducing. Therefore, most probably in the presence of oxygen is not an important step in this reaction. The same is valid for the NO and propane direct reaction. We saw that there is no significant homogeneous reaction between the nitrogen dioxide and the propane. The selectivity of the nitrogen production strongly depends on the ratio of the NO and hydrocarbon. The concentration of the oxygen and the reaction temperature have a strong effect on the initial oxidation steps. Most probably this is the reason why they have also effect on the FCR reaction. We also saw that homogeneous and heterogeneous reactions of radicals should be involved in this reaction. I want to remind you that the oxidations are typical radical reactions. We have also two free radicals here, the NO and NO2. So this is not so surprising. And finally, I show here again the most probable equation what describes this reaction at least below 500 degrees. Thank you for your attention.
We have time for a number of questions. Well, if there are no questions, I'll introduce the next